Hello and welcome to another Mind Mastery video. For today's subject, I've chosen the game of a social status, which some people assume that everyone plays, other people assume that you can play it or you can decide not to play. But in very short, the social status game is about the kind of social order and social groups and how people position themselves accordingly to other people and the status they perceive. And so the status itself is dictated by things like wealth, career, what sort of material possessions you have, what sort of things you achieved, what kind of people you associate yourself with, and so on and on. So the consequences of that is that some people perceive others as being superior to them and other people as being inferior. And based on that, their behavior will change accordingly to the person they talk to. And it's been said that this game is nothing else than actually an evolutionary process in which people determine who has a right to have more resources than the other person, or how to get a better mate, how to get a better partner, how to ensure that people with a lower status are not really messing around with people with a higher status because it destroys the social order. And in turn, apparently makes the game unequal because the people with a higher social status work hard for their status, work hard for their wealth, work hard in order to get a better mate. However, the status is not something static or something permanent, and usually people with a lower status will strive towards achieving this higher status, will strive towards better quality of the car or the house, better quality of their wives or husband, and this social mobility enables actually to kind of shuffle the people with different statuses. And in turn, what happens is that when a person jumps from a lower status into a higher status, they usually dissociate themselves from their friends. They usually dissociate themselves from the environment they are currently in order to move into that higher status environment. And they usually acquire new friends, new acquaintances, that will reinforce the idea of having a higher status. Most people assume that everyone plays a social status game. There's no exemption, and you are a participant of this game whether you want it or not. Because people will judge you, people will assume that if you have less than the other person, then you might be, less of a person, and that you are simply lower in the so-called pecking order and that you deserve less from life because you contribute less, perhaps you have less, perhaps your girlfriend or boyfriend is not that, highly achieving CEO of some company or whatever. And the game itself, perhaps it might appear as straightforward to some people, as less straightforward to other people, but usually the game itself occurs as being as subtle as, a simple conversation with a stranger on the street, or conversation with your friend, or a debate with other people, or kind of presenting yourself in a specific manner when you're going out to a party or to some meeting. And so what happens is that if you are unwilling to play the game, or if you are simply unaware that such a game is going on, people will usually perceive you as a threat because you will behave however you please and you're not following the social conventions and rules that will, enable other people to position themselves accordingly to your status, because you will, sometimes act like you are superior, sometimes like you are an inferior, and you don't really know when to act appropriately in quotes, because appropriately in this context mean to know your status and to know the status of other people and behave accordingly. And so in this situation, you are perceived as a threat, and most people will disapprove of you or will simply be confused because they don't know how to relate to you, because they cannot guess your status, and equally they cannot behave outside of the social status game because they don't know anything else. And so in this situation, it doesn't matter what sort of intelligence you have, what sort of manners you have, whether you are a nice person or not. What matters is that you don't fit in. You're not playing the game, and so you are automatically perceived as a loser because you are not playing. But as we all know, the life is more complex than this. The life extends beyond the social level of the reality. We are all embedded with that, the whole universe, if you like. And by the end of the day, what really matters is our experience and the quality of it, no matter whether you are a wealthy person or not, no matter whether your wife is really pretty, and no matter whether your husband is a CEO of some company. So at this point, the good question would be, is there anything alternative to a social status game? Is there anything that will enable us to, have a good experience, develop friendships with other people or develop acquaintances and being treated with respect by others, regardless of your status? I think that what really matters is actually the values you have and the values you give to the world. If you constantly participate in that game and kind of scan your environment for any potential threat to your status or how other people might judge you, whether other people see your status, and how can you position yourself to other people, then isn't it kind of a slavery, because your behavior will be strictly shaped by what's going on in the environment with other people and how other people relate to you. I believe it is because it kind of takes away your freedom, it takes away your spontaneous way of, having different experiences, because what you're gonna do is you're gonna seek status and you're gonna try to defend the status that you already have. There are many experiments based on the social status game. One of them is based on a game called StarPower, in which there are 3 status groups. People are assigned different chips, and they are asked to, trade these chips and kind of play with each other and try to win as many chips as possible. What participants don't know is that the amount of chips is kind of fixed, so many people will remain in the same social status group as they've been assigned on the beginning, and they will not have a chance to actually move on higher or higher. Interesting things that have been observed during this game is that people will behave accordingly to their status, so that people with a low status will kind of treat others with, bigger amount of respect or kindness or whatever, because they simply perceive others as being superior. And in turn, superior group will treat people with a lower status as kind of inferior, and in turn will try to exercise the power and control over them because they are superior, and so they feel that they have a right to boss around and actually create new rules to the game. Does it sound familiar? Yes, it does. It's not just an experiment in the laboratory, but it's also a real life example. And then, I don't know, I personally find it quite absurd because this game has no winner. There's no end. There's no reward waiting for you at the end, where you can say, oh yes, I won the social status game. It's basically just playing over and over again the same game, but with different people, different challenges, and so on and on. And so the thing is that even if you want to, you cannot really ignore this game, because there are people who, try very hard to play this game right. And the more wealth they have, the bigger status, the higher status they have, the more involved they're gonna be in the game. And in turn, they're gonna treat you as a threat. And they're gonna treat you as a person who also plays the game. And in turn, you cannot really expect any authentic interactions with these people, but only in relation to the social status game, which is kind of, which I find quite funny. But As a last point, the good question would be, is there an alternative to the whole game? Can you quit the game? Can you, simply state, I'm not playing, I'm not going to do it anymore because I don't want to play? As Alan Watts said, let's invent our own game and, seek other players who are willing to play it. And so, as mentioned before, what really matters is our own experience and the values that each individual hold. Some people might value, authentic relationships with other people, and others might choose to, be creative, be able to do whatever they want, whatever they please, and whenever they please. And it doesn't mean that we have to kind of impose ourselves onto other people. It doesn't mean we have to ask other people for the permission either. But it can be compared to, dancing. When you dance, you kind of try not to step on other people, but equally you try to be free and to express yourself. So in the same way, in this game of life, when we hold particular values, it doesn't mean we have to impose them on other people. It doesn't mean we have to treat other people as a threat to our own values, but we can skillfully move around and play our own game. Thank you very much for watching.